problem with our federal government? If you do, stay tuned because we at Convention of States have a solution as big as the problem. Our broadcast host is Dale Parrish. He's the Convention of States Indiana State Director. Take it away, Dale.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you, Marengo Mike, for that introduction. My name is Dale Parrish. I am the State Director here in the state of Indiana for Convention of States, and I want to welcome you to our broadcast. We, once again, have a very special broadcast for you this evening, and I want to, initially here, I want to go through and review with you the different segments that we're going to have in our broadcast tonight. The very first segment leading off will be a topic of discussion. And of course, every week we try to vary and try to bring in something different. Could be an interview, maybe with someone from our organization here in Indiana, or it could be a national individual. And it so happens that tonight we have one of our regional directors by the name of Grant Martin, and Grant will be our guest this evening. We'll talk about his particular region and some of the challenges that he faces in his region with the Convention of States. Now, once we get through the topic of discussion, then we'll go into what we call the general information segment. I'll be bringing up my PowerPoint presentation, and we'll be offering you then some general information about resources that we have available, as well as how we're doing here in the state of Indiana. After that segment, then I'll get into what I call the Convention of States basics. These are the three tenets that our program nationally as well as in Indiana is based upon. So Convention of States basics, we always try to cover those whenever we have an opportunity to do so. After that, we'll try to recognize viewers that have tuned in this evening. So if you're a viewer, please go to the chat section and give us a comment or a question. Got to keep them brief. I'm limited to the number of characters I can get on the screen at one time. But do that, and I'll try my best to recognize you this evening. Well, after the viewer recognition, then we'll get into our closing and try to wrap things up, let you know what we're going to do on our next broadcast next Monday evening at 7 p.m. So now I also want to bring up a little issue. From time to time, we run into technical difficulties. So if your screen would freeze up or go blank, just know we've encountered one of those technical difficulties. And we ask that you don't hang around. It just takes too long to get everything up and going again. Just so go on and have a good evening, and be sure to tune in next Monday evening at 7 o'clock and join us for our next broadcast. So let me turn that off, and we'll go to our topic of discussion this evening. And I want to bring up our guest, and that is Grant Martin. Let's bring Grant up into the screen. Come on up here, Grant. Where are you? Not coming up into the screen. There he is.
Hey,
All
Dale, how you doing, brother?
Hey, bud. Good to see you.
Good seeing you. Good seeing you. Happy Easter to you.
Thank you. Thank you. You too. And thank you for joining us tonight.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's my pleasure.
Grant, now you live in Florida, right?
I do. I'm up here in the Panhandle of Florida.
And I understand you're originally from the Pittsburgh area, and you're still a Pittsburgh Steeler fan.
Oh, amen, brother. Amen.
We're going to overlook that part tonight, okay? But Grant, the first thing I always like to ask guests, and especially guests that we have on that are part of the Convention of States movement, is to tell us not the Convention of States basics I want you to talk about. I want you to tell us, I got the wrong one. I want you to tell us your story, your Convention of States story. You know what I'm talking about.
Sure.
So go ahead.
Well, I have to thank my wife for this one. It was shortly after the movement started. She had sent me a Facebook post, and I was looking at it. Hey, that's pretty interesting. But life was a little chaotic at that time, and shortly after that, I should back up a little bit too. At that time, my first granddaughter was. I had my first granddaughter. She was a couple years old. And it's like, yeah, because I've been worried about what we're turning over to them. And but anyway, so she sent me that Facebook post. I looked at it. I wound up having to go over to Israel for 8 months, and then the week after I left to go to Israel, my second granddaughter was born. So by the time I made it back, I'm looking at my two grandchildren. I'm now blessed to have three, and I'm like, I've got to do something. It's just been sitting around complaining is not enough. You look at the trillions of dollars of debt that we're giving our children and our grandchildren. It's incomprehensible that we can do that with a straight face.
So you followed government and politics and so forth. You were someone that paid attention to the news and
right. I was in the military, more than a year or two ago, and I've often thought it crazy that when I look back now, how much more I know about the Constitution, because I kind of went on a constitutional journey, as I like to call it, where I started studying a lot more about it. But when I was 19, I raised my hand to defend the Constitution. I really did not even, of course, I knew what the Constitution was, but I really did not truly understand it. And I often look back now, how crazy it is to not really truly understand the greatness of that document, and then be able to raise your hand and swear to defend it against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So,
me too. Yeah.
But that's how I got into it. Was just looking at my grandchildren. I have to at least tell them that I've tried.
Now, Grant, did you come through the ranks, so to speak?
I did. I started out as a volunteer district captain here in Florida.
Okay.
Moved into state director, and then assistant regional director, and then I guess they decided they liked me, and they said, "Hey, we want to make you regional director." And so, voila, here I am, brother.
Okay. Well, that's pretty typical, I think, and I think that's important that in our organization that you go through those ranks so you understand what the challenges that individuals face. Okay. Well, now tell us then, what states do you cover?
I have North Carolina, South Carolina, West Virginia, Kentucky, and Colorado.
Colorado.
That's right. It's the Southeast region. I like to get a little bit of mileage out of that one, but I haven't changed the name of the region. And there's history behind Colorado, why they're in that region, but it's good. I love my teams, each and every one of them, and they're all unique, and have unique legislatures, unique personalities as teams. So, love them all.
Now, if anyone that may be kind of plotting this on a map would notice that there are some southern states that are not included in your region, and there's a good reason for that, right?
There is. Mississippi used to be one of my states, and there were 15 states to pass last year, and then they go to a different regional director, and
right.
and then all the other states here in the South have pretty much passed. So
and Georgia was the first one.
That's correct.
Wasn't it? Yeah, first one.
It was Georgia, then Alaska, and then Florida.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So those are the states that you covered. Now, tell everybody. Well, for those that may not know, Indiana is considered a past state. We passed the resolution in 2016 calling for a convention of states. So we are now in a separate region, the past states region.
That's correct.
So how we differ how do we differ from the states that you cover?
Well, you guys have actually got the legislatures to pass the resolution, and you have a resolution that's sitting there waiting for all 34 states, so we can all get together for a convention.
Okay. So, and the other regional directors that I'm going to be interviewing all have the same situation as you do, Grant. The states that you cover are open states or in play or whatever you want to call them. So we've got in a separate region then all the states that have the 15 states that have passed the resolution are all considered in that region. In that region, region captain is Rodney Huckleberry. We had Rodney on some months ago, actually.
Hey, he's a good guy, by the way. Just don't tell him I said that.
Okay. Well, we'll keep that just between the two of us. Okay. Yes, Rodney's a great guy. Well, I'm sure everything is just running smoothly in your region, but can you think of any possible challenges that you may be facing?
No challenges whatsoever, brother.
That's what I thought.
Just smooth. Everything's well-oiled machine. Legislature. There's no virus or anything that's going on. No, legislature doing squirrely things. None of that stuff happens. So no.
Even though Indiana's a past state, I bet we have some challenges that we share.
Sure.
I'm thinking of people challenges.
Yeah. Well, obviously the biggest challenge, and this is regardless of state or whatever, is just getting people to be active. Get active people involved. And bottom line is, if we want to save this country, that means you have to get involved. It's not enough to sit on the sidelines and complain about it. And I get that. I was that person. I was the one sitting
Sure.
there complaining. And
me too.
Hey, you've got jobs. You're trying to take care of family. And now we have this virus thing going on. I get it. I certainly get it. But if your future for your children and your grandchildren are important to you, then you need to get engaged. And so that's always the biggest challenge. And I don't care what the volunteer organization is. It's a challenge to get people to volunteer, and certainly appreciate that. That's probably the biggest challenge that I have.
Well, I think that's a very important point. Regardless of the organization, I hear people talking about that are into church organizations, and it's hard to get people to step forward in churches to take on responsibilities, and so it's a universal problem.
Sure.
Yeah. Do you have state directors in each of your states?
I have, and that's always one of the things that you deal with, personnel change, being a volunteer organization. I did have state directors in all my states, and some got promoted, and so I'm missing a state director in Virginia, and then my there's been a couple others had to step down for health reasons or just work. So right now I got 3 states that are looking for state director. So I'm playing part-time state director in 3 states, and as well as playing regional director in all 6. So
you do that in your spare time, right?
That's right. It's like I tell you, I'm just sitting around eating bonbons all the time.
Well, I'll tell you, we have one of our problems is finding district captains and not only finding them, but then retaining them.
Sure.
Because that requires a time commitment to be a good district captain.
And they're so vital. I mean, a good district captain is, really, and I encourage anybody that's on the broadcast here, if you have any passion about your country and you have the time, we'll give you the tools, we'll give you the training, step up and apply. It makes a world of difference. And really, this whole business that we're in, it's all about relationships, whether it's forming relationships with people that just feel just like you, petition signers maybe that that are in your district, or whether it's with your representative or delegate or state senator. It's all about relationships, and that takes time. And that's one of the most beautiful things that a district captain can do is they just help build those relationships.
Yeah.
And you know what? To me, if especially if you like people at all, it's a wonderful position to be in because you get, yes, there's challenges and time commitments, but it's a way, you form bonds with people that are just amazing. I mean, look at you, Dale. We don't get a chance to talk that often, but when we do, it's just like old friends. We have a common interest in saving this great nation. So you'll find some of the finest people in this organization and form some amazing relationships.
Lifetime friendships.
That's right.
You're right. Well, Grant, do you have any states that you think are very close to? I know you do. Do you have any states very close to passing?
Yeah. Well, we were well on our way in South Carolina right before the virus hit. We were hopeful that West Virginia was going to pass this year, but we ran out of time. They have a really short session. It's 60 calendar days there in West Virginia, and they had a few issues in the legislature this year, and it just caused us to run out of time. We were just starting to we making a lot of progress in South Carolina, and then kaboom, the coronavirus hit, and so obviously every legislature that was open still is kind of in a state of flux. That's obviously COS is not important. They're dealing with COS, or I mean COVID funding issues and all that. So, but I think there's still going to be some that are going to shake out. Hopefully after hopefully we get past this and hopefully very shortly.
I hope so too. I know our hopes were pretty high for this year as far as the number of states that we thought we would get past. I know Mark Meckler, our president, was very high, but of course that was before the virus hit. So,
but I tell you what, things happen for a reason, and one of the things that I think is just amazing that we're doing as an organization and is reaching out to our state legislators. Our mission is much bigger than just passing the resolution, right? It's truly about building a grassroots army, the largest grassroots army of self-governing citizens. Well, so what's that mean? Well, that means that we have to, as a people, have to take action and not always look to the federal government or any form of government for that matter. But, we're reaching out to our state legislators and saying, hey, do you have, we have 500 petition signers in your district. Is there a constituent that's in need? I'm hearing stories of, like in South Carolina, they had a lady whose husband was in hospital. She couldn't go see him. She wanted to send him a care package. And of course, she couldn't drive, but then, with the virus, even if she could, so one of our regional captains, he went over there and picked it up, coordinated with the hospital, dropped it off to the staff there, and the guy got his care package. So
great.
We're doing things like that around the nation and being a part of the solution and not a part of the problem. So it's it's great to see that stuff.
All right. Okay. Well, Grant, that's a wrap. I want to thank you very much for giving us the time this evening to talk about your region. So thanks again. And
well, it's my pleasure, and thank you for what you do, man. Keep on spreading the word. I know you guys up there, you're working your butts off, and I encourage it. And your listeners, come join a wonderful team here. I know you guys, we talk about you an awful lot there in the national staff of some of the wonderful things you do. So if you get a chance, please join the Indiana team there. I know that they'd embrace you with open arms, and best of luck to you guys. Just keep on doing the great work that you're doing, brother.
Well, thank you very much, Grant. Thank you.
You do the same, sir.
Bye-bye. All right, Grant Martin, very, very nice gentleman. Grant's the first in a series of region captains that we're going to, region directors, I should say, that we're going to have on. And next week we're going to have another one on. I'll be talking about him in a little bit here when we get into the closing area. Right now, I want to bring up my PowerPoint so that we can get into some information that I can give to you. And in order to do that, I'm going to activate the slideshow function here so that you can get a full screen and see clearly what I'm going to be talking about. Let's get into now some resources that we have available to us, not only here in Indiana, but nationally. And the main one being our national website, conventionestates.com. Now, you're going to hear us make reference to this website from time to time. If you're looking to get involved in convention estates, the very first step to take is to go to our national website, conventionestates.com, open an account, sign the petition, and bingo, you are now a supporter in convention estates. We'll be talking about this a little bit more later on, but that's the main informational source that we have is our national website. Now, embedded in the national website is our state website page, conventionestates.com/Indiana. Obviously, a more focused look on the state of Indiana. Social media platforms, our main one is Facebook, Convention Estates Indiana. And as a matter of fact, our broadcast this evening is coming to you through that Facebook page. So that's our main platform, social media platform, Facebook. YouTube channel, COS Indiana, very much an educational resource for you. We have narrated PowerPoint presentations on there. We have recordings of these broadcasts that we're bringing to you. We also have links to a podcast that our legislative liaison, Paul Phillips, does called the Free to Be Free podcast. Excellent, excellent podcast. Paul does a great job. We use his podcast frequently as resource material for some of our broadcasts. So I encourage you on our YouTube channel, COS Indiana, look for the links to Paul's podcast, the Free to Be Free. Twitter, hashtag COS Indiana, Instagram, LinkedIn. We're on a number of other platforms. So if you're into social media platforms, or social media, I should say, you should not have any problem finding us out there. Let me give you just some quick numbers on how we're doing here in Indiana. In 2019, we surpassed 41,000 supporters in the state, been growing at a tremendous rate every year. And in 2020, we have set a goal of 52,000 supporters. And I want to tell you, so far this year, we're off to a good start in reaching that goal, 52,000. About 2,900 volunteers, people that have indicated a willingness to help out if necessary. Then we have about 40 individuals in leadership positions here in the state. Now, here comes this website again, conventionestates.com. If you're at all interested in perhaps devoting a little more time, going a little bit above and beyond being a supporter, which is very important, but if you feel like you can do that, then go to the national website, click on the menu selection, Take Action, and scroll down to where it says Become a Leader. Look at the different volunteer opportunities that we have available. If one's of interest to you, open it up, read about it. And if you're really interested, go ahead and make application for that position. Now, you're not obligated in any way. Don't worry about that. But go ahead and make application. What that does then is it brings your name up on a report that I see every day, as well as a few others. One of us then will be in contact with you to further discuss that position with you. So, like I said, we always need more people in leadership positions. So if you've got some time, and our leadership positions, the time commitment will vary. So if you've got just a little time that you would like to devote, then look at the positions that require a smaller amount of time. If you feel like you can devote more and more time, we have some positions that, yep, that require a real time commitment. So please do that. Look forward to seeing you come up on some of our reports on leadership positions. All right, let's get now into the basics, the Convention of States basics. That's the problem, the solution, and the plan. Now let's first look at the problem. In general, the problem is that our federal government, we feel, is basically out of control from the standpoint that they lack the will and the courage to address some very, very basic structural issues that we feel are very important. Now, we further define the problem into three abuses that we call abuses of the federal government. The first one is the national debt. Well, it was just over 23 trillion. Lord knows what it's going to be now with the coronavirus pandemic and the money that is being generated to pour into our economy. I hate to think what our national debt is going to end up being when this is all over. But the point being is that up to this point, very little is being done about our national debt. Practically nothing, as a matter of fact. So that's the first major abuse that we think needs to be addressed. The second abuse has to do with the regulatory crisis. As you know, the administrative state is now considered the fourth branch of our government. And I know the current administration's been eliminating a number of regulations, which is good, but much, much more needs to be done in this area, especially in the area of how these regulations are created. So addressing the regulatory crisis, second abuse. The third abuse has to do with state rights. And when our country was founded, the concept of dual federalism existed, where the sharing of power was equal between the states and the federal government. Well, as you can imagine, as you know, that has all tilted toward the federal government now. We believe the career politician plays a major role in this, and therefore we think one way to address this particular abuse is term limits. Term limits for Congress, our federal judiciary, and other federal officials. So those are the three abuses by the federal government that we've identified. Well, what's our solution? Our solution is in Article 5 of the Constitution. We're not making this up. It's in Article 5. Article 5 describes two methods of proposing amendments to the Constitution. And let's talk about those two methods just very briefly here. The first method is the one that's been used, and that is where 2/3 of Congress propose an amendment, and then that proposed amendment has to be ratified by 3/4 of the states, which would be 38 states. Once ratified, that proposed amendment becomes an amendment to the Constitution. Well, there is a second method, never been used, and that second method is where 2/3 of the state legislatures apply to hold a convention of states for the purpose of proposing amendments to the Constitution. Any proposed amendments then, like in method 1, would have to be ratified by 2/3 of the states, be ratified by 3/4 of the states, or 38 states. So it takes 2/3 of the state legislatures to apply to hold the convention. That's 34 states. Any proposed amendments that would come out of that convention would then have to be ratified, just like in method 1, by 3/4 of the states, or 38 states. This is what we're all about, folks. This is what we're all about. We want this convention of states to happen, and we want to see amendments proposed that would address the abuses that we described in the problem area. Well, what's our plan? How are we going to bring this about? Well, it's in two parts. The plan's in two parts. The first is the application strategy. As you recall, we just said it takes 34 states to apply to hold the convention. Well, the thing is, on all 34 applications have to be for the subject matter, I should say, of the 34 applications, the subject matter has to be the same. All right. So we've designed the application, and we want to see in the application, we want to see at the convention, 3 areas addressed: fiscal restraints, limiting the power and jurisdiction of the federal government, and term limits. Those are the 3 areas that relate to the 3 abuses that we described in the problem. That's what we want to see happen. Now, the other part of the plan is mobilizing the grassroots. And when I say the grassroots, I'm talking about you and me and our state legislators. Very important. You, me, and our state legislators. These are the individuals that are going to make this happen. Now, I will report to you that our momentum to bring this about is very, very good. We have 15 states that have made application. Yes, Indiana is one of those states. We were the 6th state to do this. So we're now legislatively, we're in all 50 states. We have nationally over 4 million supporters, over 41,000 here in the state of Indiana. So our momentum is good. And I think, once again, if you're interested in getting involved, we would love to have you. Go to that national website, conventionofstates.com, open an account, become a supporter. If nothing else, become a supporter. That's very important in itself. So we would love to have your involvement. All right, let's go back and let me take the PowerPoint down and bring up my screen, and let me see who has joined us this evening for viewers. Well, my goodness, I see some. Here is Jeanette. Jeanette, hi Jeanette. Jeanette was a high school classmate of mine, and we've sort of stayed in contact with each other through Facebook over the years. And I see her at class reunions a lot, but I see her on Facebook more. So Jeanette says, hello, Dale, just managed to stumble on your cast. Good to see you. Well, thank you, Jeanette, for joining tonight. Very, very, very good to see you. Thank you very, very much for joining us. Now, this next young lady that has joined us this evening happens to be, well, I don't see, she doesn't have a picture, but her name is Donalda Wright, and she's my cousin. She is a young lady that originally from the state of Kentucky, and I grew up with her. So Donalda, thank you very much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate you being with us tonight. So those are a couple of the viewers that we've had tonight. Now, this broadcast, as all of our broadcasts, is recorded. So the recording will appear on our Facebook page tomorrow. So if you missed us tonight, you can go to our Facebook page tomorrow. And actually, it may be on there later this evening as far as that's concerned. So if you missed us tonight, you can check us out on the recording. Okay. All right. Let's close things up this evening. And I just wanted to mention that our next broadcast, of course, will be next Monday evening at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So we're going to be continuing with our regional director series. We've got a series including Grant tonight. We've got 4 regional directors lined up to appear with us over the next few weeks. So next Monday evening will be Regional Director Monica Sellers. Monica pretty sure lives right next door to us here in Ohio. So Monica will come on and we'll get to meet her and learn some things about her, just like we learned from Grant Martin this evening. So Monica Sellers next Monday evening. Well, folks, I like to close with a quote that I've always enjoyed, and this is from one of our founders and currently president, Mark Meckler. And Mark always says that, you know, there's a fundamental question facing our country these days. And that question is not what should we do? The question is who will decide? So the question facing us really is a two-word question, very simply, who decides? And I just saw another viewer come on, and I have got to recognize this individual. This is Aaron Jenkins. Hi, Dale. Just catching the last bit. Aaron isn't, well, he's not he's a distant cousin, I guess. His father was actually a second cousin of mine. So I've got a couple of number of relatives on the broadcast this evening. So Aaron, thank you for joining us. I appreciate you coming on this evening. Okay, I just had to do that. You know, when relatives come on the broadcast, you got to recognize them. So I did that. But once again, to wrap things up here, so the question facing us is a two-word question, very simply, who decides? And we in Convention of States, we believe that we, the people, should have a much more major role in making the decisions in our country these days. So we, the people, we should be involved in who decides in our country. Well, that's a wrap for us this evening, folks. And I want to thank you for joining in with us this evening. And once again, I look forward to seeing you next Monday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and for another episode of Convention of States, Indiana Live. Good night, everyone.